This is the Wheeler & Wilson half-case low bed machine from 1862 to 1872 that belonged to my father. And I thought I needed to set the timing. And John at the Wheeler & Wilson Yahoo list said, well, try again, make sure you don't have the needle set too low. So I fiddled with that. I looked at the hook and the rotating as it all started to work, and watch this. It's sewing. The machine is sewing. Now, it's going to take me a minute to get the treadle going. And because I'm holding the camera, I can't really hold the fabric. But look at this. Now I still have to adjust the upper tension because I'm getting a few loopy things on the back from the thread, from the upper thread. But it is sewing. Now the camera says it's focused, and I don't know if you can see those stitches right here on that top row of stitches. This is the back side, and I'm getting a couple of little loops there, extra loops, but here's the rest of those stitches, and if anything they're a little bit tight for one piece of fabric, which is what I've been testing on. But I had done this already, so the first two blocks together, my seam is a little crooked. But there's the upper thread, and here's the lower thread. And see, the tension is actually tight, but I got a loop there and a loop there of the upper thread. But other than that, the seam, other than it's crooked, the seam itself, it would hold. And when I open it up, those two places that I got the loop on the back, when I try to pull it apart, they do not pull apart. So it's as if an extra amount of thread gets thrown into it. But look at this, the first two blocks sewn together on a machine that could be from anywhere from 1862 to 1872. My father thought it was from 1874. So I want to use this block for something. Let me grab another scrap block and we'll do it again. That's the bottom of the treadle. And my father had an ingenious thing he did with all of his machines. He put them on dollies, on wheels, which is wonderful if, like me now, I'm one person trying to move heavy treadles around. It's great because they're on wheels. But this one, he loved this machine so much, he's got it bolted to the dolly, and I haven't removed the bolts. So I have to kind of hang on a little bit as I sew and treadle because it's bolted to wheels. Now let me put this like that, and we will see if it stays there while I sew. I've got a piece of regular muslin that I've folded in half. I may have to hold on, like I said. I have to put blocks behind the wheel or something. Now this treadle, as you saw, has feet-shaped pedals. And that would have been perfect, except it looks like my thread broke. So let me start again. Or maybe I ran out of bobbin thread. Let me see here. When I filled the bobbin, I couldn't tell how much I actually got on the bobbin. And I bet I'm out of bobbin thread. So what I'll do is fill the bobbin again. I do have a video already on filling the bobbin. And I will probably make a neater video about sewing with this machine. But you can see the action works. The needle goes up and down. The needle didn't break, which was what my problem was before. So I will set this up and probably make a second video. I've wound the bobbin, I've filled the bobbin, and I don't know if you can see that or not. But the last time I did this, I could tell I ran out of thread on the spool I was using, and I could tell I got to about halfway. When I just filled it now, I can actually see the thread up to the edge of the center of the bobbin. So I know this is full now. And I did say I was going to make a second video, but since the bobbin's full, let me put it in and see how we do this time. Now on this machine, here's the bobbin in my hand, and this is the bobbin holder right here, and this goes in like that, and then when you slide this forward and tighten it, that is your bobbin tension, believe it or not. And I was having more trouble with stitches until I adjusted that, and that's what I'm going to do now. And once you get the bobbin in there, there's a little wire bar underneath the cloth plate right here where my finger is. And so the bobbin will go in like this with the thread leading off the top, and then you'll pull it forward and it'll go under that little bar. And you just have to make sure you have the right tension. This is the needle thread that's in the way. So it's difficult to do it with one hand. It's going to sit like that with the thread leading off the top and toward the front, like that. And now to test the tension, see how I have the bobbin in there and I've got the thread leading off the top? That's a little bit too tight because I'm pulling the thread and the bobbin isn't moving easily. So I'm going to back this off just a little bit until the bobbin turns freely when I pull the thread. And now you can see that has, and now it might even be just a little bit loose. So what I'll do is do some stitches and see how it comes out. And now I think you can see that metal rod pin thing right there that I'm putting the bobbin thread underneath. I want to show you how I have this threaded. This is a spool of thread on the spool holder in the back, which then comes underneath and through this thread guide right here. It goes around this disc really 1.5 times and comes out the front, and that is the tension disc. I then have it going through this eye right here, and then that's a little bit blurry, but there's the top of the needle, and to the left of that, I'm using that as a thread guide. I'm not positive that it is a thread guide, but I think it is. So I've got the thread going down through that, and then it threads through the needle from the left to the right. So that's how I have the thread and the needle set on the upper thread, and I had showed you how I have the bobbin thread set up on the bottom. Now there's my piece of muslin that I had just started to stitch a few minutes ago, and you can see the needle holes but no thread. So what I'm going to do is the same thing I did a minute ago. Set the camera up right here and let it sit there as I stitch this piece of muslin. I did put some blocks behind the wheels on the dolly. And I believe my thread broke. So this is what I went through a few minutes ago with adjusting the tension between the two. And you might have to do that each time you put a new bobbin in. The stitches on the back look fine this time. I don't know if you can see that. And before my thread ran out, they also look fine. Look at that. Look at that. Perfect stitches. Except the thread broke. So I probably either have the tension too tight on the upper thread. I would imagine that's what the problem is. So I know my hands are in the way, but I'm going to pull the thread forward. It says to leave about 5 inches to the right each time you start with a new thread. And these have glass presser feet, which is actually, it's kind of neat to be able to see exactly what you're doing. Now when you go to remove the thread, I think this machine is making 2 loops, 2 stitches at a time. I'm not positive. I would have to check the book again. But if that's the case, you actually have to make sure that you've released the second loop before you can remove the piece from the machine. And pulling it doesn't always release it easily. So see, it's actually starting a second stitch, a second half of the stitch. So I'm going to just cut it like this. I got it away from the machine. There is one right here, one little loop that's extra. But other than that, on this stitching, you could not tell that this is from a machine that is so old. I couldn't tell, anyway. You wouldn't know by looking at the stitching that I was using an antique machine. So now, I've got my, I think I'm in the middle of a stitch, and so the machine has half of a loop of needle thread below. And that's what you have to watch out for when you remove the work from here. So I'm going to check the manual, see if it gives any advice about that. But this is amazing that the machine is stitching. And I thought I was going to have to put it away because I couldn't fix the timing. And John was right, and I just had to check how the needle was set. I had the tension a little bit too tight, and my upper thread was breaking. And so now I've adjusted that. And I'm not really used to stopping this machine yet, so I want to get the needle up. But there you go. This is my sewing on the Wheeler & Wilson half case low bed from 1962 to 1972. Excuse me, that's 1862 to 1872.